All right, what's up, everybody? What's up, Kyle? How are
Hi,
you doing today?
good Manny.
Good, yes. Excited to feature you, part of our Collab Innovation Conference. Your story stood out to me. Just, you live in your honest truth. So, before we kind of get there, let's just tell folks a little bit about who you are. We're talking in Columbus, Ohio, here at
Yeah,
a wellness office. Are you Ohio native?
I am. I'm an Ohio native. I'm originally from Northwest Ohio, actually Fremont, Ohio.
Fremont. Oh, okay. Well, Mark Coleman's from Fremont. Yeah.
Correct. He's a friend of mine, and we actually went to the same high school too.
Wow. Did you
Yep,
wrestle
I
also?
did, and actually, kind of interesting. My dad and his father both placed at state together, and they grew up as childhood friends too.
Wow.
Kind of a small world,
That's awesome.
and Mark and I are both in the recovery space together too.
Man, that's beautiful. So what because I know Mark, wrestled high school things in Miami. What
hmm
was life like after high school for you?
So after I graduated from Fremont St. Joe in 1992, I went off to art school for 2 years and studied at Toledo Museum of Art.
Okay.
But after 2 years, I was like, what am I going to do with my life? Am I going to be a starving artist? So I dropped out and I went back to my hometown, Fremont, Ohio.
Yeah. And then what I mean, it's hard. Art school's hard. My dad was a musician, so I grew up watching the family struggle, a
Mhm.
band of five. So what happened after Fremont?
So when I went back to Fremont, I worked in a couple factories, even worked at a gym. I was really into working out as well as I am today back then. And I found myself gravitating back towards law enforcement. My father worked at the Sandusky County Sheriff's Office, and eventually then he was a captain there. So um,
Mhm.
I saw him do great things, have a lot of respect in the community, and I ended up following in his footsteps, actually.
Yeah, it was like a gradual.
It was. And I went to him and I asked him, I said, Dad, what do you think? You think I should go into law enforcement? He said, no, forget about it. Don't do it. Don't do it. He said, go get a trade, go get in the union, go work for a factory. And I said, you know what, Dad, I'm not. So I put some money together and I went and graduated from the police academy in 1995.
1995. Okay.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
was that like?
It was interesting. I was a young guy. I then got my first job at the Sandusky County Sheriff's Office at 21. I worked in corrections, road patrol, and during that time, I got married to my first wife,
Okay.
Melanie, and then we had our first child, Michaela, in 2000. She was a Millennium baby,
Wow.
and yeah, but then I actually went back to school and got my associate's degree in criminal justice, and then graduated from Tiffin University with a business degree.
Got it.
Yeah, 4 year degree there.
What year was that?
That was actually 2003 when I finally got that.
Okay.
And what happened was I did that because I had other aspirations of I wanted to go into the federal system.
Yeah.
I started to speak with some agents, the FBI, Secret Service, DEA, and I got really attracted to that after being on the road patrol. I had a love for drug interdiction. Crack cocaine had hit our area pretty much by storm, and
Mm.
took away a lot of good lives from a lot of good people.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was the early 2000s. So, and is that a requirement to move up in the FBI? You need to have these.
You got it. Well, one of them is you got to have a bachelor's degree to get
Got it.
into it. So yeah. So during that time, it was getting ready to have our second child, Dylan, who came in 2003, and I had been doing some interviewing with the federal system, and I got a phone call from the sheriff. Then his name was Sheriff Gangwer,
Okay.
who is my boss. And a lot of times you don't hear from the sheriff. He's pretty busy. You know, he runs the county, top law enforcement officer. So he invited me to lunch. He wanted to talk to me. And I'm like, am I in trouble
Yeah.
or what? So long story short, he says, look, I hear you're going to leave me and you're doing great things in the streets, taking off drugs, guns, money, and making an impact in the community. I'd like to offer you an opportunity to stay and be a detective. And at first I said no. And after a little bit more conversation, he said, I'll do better than that. I'll make you a detective sergeant on the spot. I said, it's a deal. So I became one of the youngest detective sergeants at the sheriff's office.
Wow.
And I hit the ground running and hit the streets, partnered with a lot of local law enforcement, federal system, taking a lot of drug dealers off the street in the community.
That's incredible. And is this primarily in Northeast Ohio?
Northwest, actually.
Okay, okay.
Northwest. Toledo's not too far
Yeah.
away, and actually, with where we're located, we had a lot of people from Detroit,
Detroit. Yep.
Chicago.
Yeah.
We had a lot of that. Some gangs,
Yeah.
infiltrating the area too,
That
and
was the
setting up
Blood and
shop.
Crips
Yeah,
time. Yeah.
yeah, yes.
And I went to Bowling Green, and uh, I've had a gun pointed at me only twice in my life, and one of them
Mm-hmm.
was in Bowling Green, and
Yes.
it was some guys from Detroit. So I could understand that, and that was in 2007. Um, so yeah, what was that like? Like like just
It was great. That was some of the greatest times of my life. And then actually a year later, the sheriff was so impressed. It was around Christmas time. He had me come down to his office, said, "Merry Christmas." He promoted me to captain then and slid me a
wow. How
captain's
old were
mate.
you then?
Like 27, 28 years old. I was
Wow.
young,
Yeah.
and I was really driven by taking drugs off the street. So it even went as far as eventually I worked in some undercover capacities too.
Wow.
First one I actually worked in was a theft ring. We had got hit with a lot of people were calling in their Kubotas, their tractors, four wheelers are being stolen. So I ended up getting involved with an individual in the county, and he wanted to cooperate and take me to the ringleader. So I started stealing Kubotas and log splitters and things, and I became part of the investigation and infiltrating the theft ring.
Yeah.
I went by the name of Bert, and eventually, we wrapped it up. I got arrested. I was taken into custody as well as an undercover and
Yeah.
taken into a jail. And um, after the ringleader figured out who I was, he wanted to do a plea deal and go to prison. So that was kind of like my first undercover stint.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I did some street corner deals, going into houses, buying drugs. But then I eventually got into a larger scale where I started buying large quantities of cocaine. I was actually deputized by DEA and worked undercover for them for a few years. And I would buy, large quantities of cocaine up to maybe 17 to 20 kilos at a time.
Wow. Wow.
And eventually we wrapped that up as well too.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a national arrest at the time because they went from state to state because of the organization was so big.
Yeah. Wow. What was that like?
It was interesting. I went by the name of Scotty Pitts. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I really learned a lot, working hand to hand with people in large scale organizations, and purchasing that kind of cocaine it's pretty big.
Yeah.
It's big. And sometimes it can get dangerous,
Yeah.
but
That's what I was wondering about. Yeah.
yeah, Manny. But the thing of it is, I was very lucky. I was blessed. I never got hurt, and I got through and slipped through the cracks, and I had a successful, you know, spree working with DEA, and it
Yeah.
was a lot of fun. A
What
lot
was
of
that
fun.
like? You see a lot of TV, and it's like talk about balancing family and undercover and all these things. Like, was that a challenge during those years?
It was because sometimes you're sitting at dinner time with your family and picking up and lining up drug deals while and you're not that person,
Yeah.
but you have to switch your mind to be that person.
Yeah.
So during that time, that did a big thing in Sandusky County because that made an impact in our community too. So Sheriff Gangwer, he was very, very pleased with me, and he came to me and he says, I feel someday you can be in my shoes and you can be the sheriff of the county. And I was a young guy then too. Here I am, about 32, 33 years old, and he started to get me involved with the political scene, which in that area they were Republican. I became part of the Republican Central Committee. He brought me to Columbus. I sat on a board with him of Ohio Organized Crime, and he mentored me. He was like a father to me, and he believed in me. And we would have a lot of good conversations as time went on. And I'll never forget, it was on a Wednesday when we'd head to Columbus. He says to me, he says, "Hey, remember, anything ever happens, I want you to be the next sheriff." Well, on that Sunday, I got a phone call. He had died. He
Oh
passed away.
man. Yeah.
He was a younger guy, great shape, in his 60s. And so I had to quickly make a choice what I was going to do with my life. But I knew what his wishes were. So I pulled the trigger and went for it.
Yeah.
And so September of 2008, I was appointed the sheriff of Sandusky County over a veteran who was 60 years old and had 30 years law enforcement experience. I was 34. I was the youngest in the state of Ohio.
Wow.
And currently I'm still the youngest ever in Sandusky County history.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible. 34 election, go through the whole
Every 4 years,
process.
I
Yeah.
have to run and run. And yeah, and one of the interesting things is I'll never forget. So 2008, the stock market crashed. There was
Yeah.
a lot of things happening. Foreclosures were big.
Yeah.
So I had to end up cutting my budget over 300,000, which is really tough. And I didn't want to lay off anybody. I didn't want to take away their livelihood, and especially I didn't want the community to be at risk with less deputies. And so what I had to do was get creative and think outside the box. And so what I did is I looked at the jail because feeding the prisoners and housing prisoners was one of my biggest costs.
Mm-hmm.
So I had 2 acres of land within the fenced in area. So I turned it into a jail garden, is what I did. The inmates raised the food,
Oh, wow.
and the plants were donated by the community, and it offset the food budget. It got so that it became so productive. The next year, I had a chicken coop. We raised our own chickens too,
Wow.
and
Eggs and everything?
we weren't allowed to have eggs. We just
Okay.
did meat broilers. So
Yeah.
we utilized that in the jail to feed the inmates. And then I was actually given the first ever Taxpayer Hero Award from actually today's Attorney General Dave Yost,
Yeah.
who was then the state auditor.
Wow.
So I was pretty proud of that. I mean, some of the things I was doing, Manny, were really getting the attention. I was doing positive things. I was picked for 20 under 40 award actually at that time,
Yeah.
Distinguished Service Award through the chamber. The and Things were going great. I mean, for what was going on, I was handling business. People were happy. We were keeping people safe. I had a good life. I really did. And but then eventually I had some medical issues. And what happened was over time, I had broken both of my ankles
Mm.
when I was a kid. So I was always in a lot of pain. Went to a specialist, diagnosed me with arthritis, is what they did.
Okay.
And the only way they wanted to deal with it at that time, they prescribed me Vicodin, which is an opiate.
Yeah.
Um, so I figured, you know what? This is what I need to do. It helped the physical pain. But then eventually, the first traumatic event that hit me pretty hard, I ended up involved with a fatal shooting.
Mm.
We had an individual that we were called out. He was had a shotgun, was going to kill his family. His family got out. So we went out on scene, and after a couple hours, there was no way of getting him out. So I went in with my guys. Like, I would never send them anywhere that I wouldn't go.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I was prior SWAT team member as well.
Okay.
I graduated from the FBI SWAT Academy.
Wow.
So I was pretty highly trained. And I said, guys, we're going to go in. And so we threw a flashbang. And unfortunately, when we went in, he pointed the gun at us and we had to take his life.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, the family turned on us. They protested several times. And they hit me with a $20 million lawsuit.
Wow.
Yes. So when that all happened, here I am, the sheriff. I got to take care of my guys. I got them counseling, immediately. I didn't take care of me. Then here comes incident number 2. Eventually, what happened one day on a Sunday, we get called out in Fremont. There's a Sandusky River with the mouth of the river. It was a late January day. 2 brothers and their friend. They fall through the ice. We go out to save them. they drown in front of us.
Mm.
I help. I make sure my guys get help, but not me.
Yeah.
I always thought, Manny, you know what? I'm the sheriff. I'm too strong for that.
Yeah.
You get a big ego. Let me tell you, when you're in that position, you're young. I don't need help. So I took care of my
Yeah.
guys. Well, those 105 Vicodin, they didn't last me a month much more.
Mm.
It was about a week they would last me.
Mm.
So then that physical pain was nearly not as bad as the mental pain.
Yeah. Yeah. So did they ever, like recommend you internally see a psychologist or something like that?
No,
Was that a part of
I
police?
no, because I never asked for help.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
was one of the best actors walking around with a smile, Manny.
Yeah.
You know, that guy that looked like he's happy on the outside, but he was really dying inside.
Mm.
So I then started to steal pills from my parents, which, they were on Percocet for, their pain. My dad went to pain management. I even started to go pick his medication up and would, how you see a staple on the bag.
Yeah.
I carried a stapler with me and I'd staple it so he'd never know I stole his pills.
Yeah.
It got that bad. And then I started to bounce from doctor to doctor and come up with different ailments. So I would get prescriptions. I even manipulated my own jail doctor to get Oxycontin.
Mm.
It got that bad. And when that wouldn't work, they have take back boxes that are all over different police stations where they
Mm.
throw away and dispose of old medications.
Yeah.
So we were the hub where you could dump it all if you were a police department in our county, and DEA would pick it up. So I would go around from place to place, pick it up, and then I'd lock my office door and I would dump that thing out. And I would be like a kid after Halloween and go through all those pills and pick
Yeah.
out the best ones. That's how bad it got for me.
And that's really, you were just trying to manage your own pain.
But my mental pain was far worse than my physical.
Yeah.
And back then I would have never said I was an addict because the addicts were the ones that we would arrest and put in jail. That's
Yeah.
how I perceived addiction then.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how things were going.
Yeah. You were suffering in silence.
I was, and so many people do.
Mm.
So, like we talked about, re-election, you go every 4 years. So here comes my third term of re-election. I'm coming up. But even before that, on February 3rd, 2015, I go to the pharmacy to go pick up my 105 Vicodin. And I knew all the pharmacists. They knew who I was. I was a sheriff. And Leslie, bless her heart, at that time, I was angry at her. She pulled me aside and I said, "What's going on here?" I thought she wanted to tell me about somebody getting Sudafed, making crystal meth or something, and tip me off. She said, "Kyle, you're done." I said, "What do you mean I'm done?"
Hmm.
She says, "You're getting red flagged. You have been going to several doctors and getting narcotics, and I'm calling every one of them, and it's got to go to a stop."
Mm.
That day, my heart dropped to my stomach. I was scared. I was sick. I flushed my last Vicodin down the toilet, and I started to detox at home.
Yeah.
And the way I did that, my wife then was a school teacher. My kids would go off to school, so I would pretend like I was going to work in my uniform, come back, pull my vehicle in the garage, put the garage door down, and lay sick for days.
Yeah.
And that's how I did it.
Wow. Self detoxed. Yeah.
Physically, Manny, I got over it, but mentally, I did it. It was still haunting me. Those demons never went away.
Yeah.
So third term comes around. I'm clean for several months. I don't think anybody's gonna ever know about my dirty little secret. I will end up having an opponent in the first part of the election, and I beat him by 62%. I figure, okay, I'm good. That 3 months after that, I get a phone call from the prosecutor in our county. He wants to meet with me. I go down, meet with him. He puts me on the spot. "Kyle, are you addicted to opiates?" I said, "No, I'll pee in a cup right now," because I hadn't used for so long.
Yeah.
I said, "I don't know what they're talking about." He says, "Well, I'm going to tell you something. Um, the Attorney General's office is going to investigate you, and so I hope they're wrong." soon as I leave there, I get on the phone and I retain an attorney just in
Yeah.
case.
Yeah.
So everything's going good. I'm still campaigning because then the general election's coming up in November,
Yeah.
and August 23rd, 2016 comes, and it's the opening day of our Sandusky County Fair, and that's always kind of a big day, especially for me, the
Yeah,
sheriff.
your local
Yeah,
fair. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. I'm there with a congressman, where they're judges and that ribbon cutting. Everything's great. 6:30 that night, I get a phone call. It's my attorney,
Mm.
Kyle. You got to turn yourself in. I said, why? You got a 43 count indictment looking at 15 years in prison. I
Wow.
thought, whew. So I tell my wife and kids, and I'm like, look, they're just out to get me. Somebody wants my job. There's no way I could tell my family that
Yeah.
their husband or their father's an addict. So I go on and I turn myself in, and then they give me $150,000 bond.
Yeah.
And so you know what I do?
What?
I bond out and I keep running for sheriff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people were shocked, but people really felt sorry for me because they didn't want to see me that way,
Yeah.
nor did I want anybody to see me that way. So I continued to deny, lie, march in parades, do debates, and do great. I mean, it was interesting when I would march in parades, people would come off the porches just to hug me and say, I'm sorry, but I'm still voting for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So eventually, my son, he was 12 at the time. It was going to be his 13th birthday coming up, and he and I went to a hunter safety course together. So he wanted a crossbow for his birthday.
Okay.
So I went out and bought him one. A couple weeks later after that, I get a phone call from my attorney. He says, Kyle, did you buy a crossbow? I said, yeah. What's up? They're going to try to revoke your bond for a dangerous weapon.
Wow.
Because they had taken everything from me, my gun and everything, while I was under indictment.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget this, Manny. I go, it was November 3rd, 2016 was the date of my hearing. And as I go to drop my son off, my son looks at me. He was dropping him off for school, and he looks at me and says, Dad, will I see you tonight for dinner? I said, I got this. So drop him off. I go to court. It got me.
Mm.
They gave me a $250,000 bond. They revoked it. No 10%. It had to be cash. I was done, Manny.
Mm.
So I went. They sent me to the Marion County Tri-County Jail. And that's where I started actually to surrender to addiction, start to talk with my parents about it, um, write letters to the judge, the prosecutor. Things were getting bumpy with my wife, of course. My kids, I couldn't really tell them anything. And I ended up figuring out a plea deal uh, with my attorney, and we put it together. Of I was going to plead to 15 counts out of the
Mm.
43.
Mm. And so like, did they know about, like everything you were doing, or like
No,
it was
not
just?
now. Gradually, I kind of let that go and
Yeah.
started to reveal and be transparent and be honest.
Yeah.
But it took me time because I still had that shame inside,
Yeah.
Manny. That shame still had me.
Yeah, that's something else. It's really just I mean, opiates, and I mean those things are so strong back then. I remember when I was a freshman actually in college, I had pneumonia,
Mm-hmm.
and then they go and they give me the liquid. I forget what it was called, but like it's like, well, everybody puts in like Sprite, all the rappers put in
Oh, well,
Sprite.
it was probably codeine or something.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
codeine,
yeah.
and like I legitimately became addicted on
Mm-hmm.
that. Like I remember getting a third refill, and then it was, and the doctors were like, "You're still sick,"
Right.
and then that's when and I'm a freshman in college, and I'm like, "Wow, I'm actually addicted to it." I think those things were so potent back then,
Yes.
and that's such a for you to just actually have pain, and then
Right.
here's your medication, and then that opens up another door.
Hmm.
That's ridiculous. I'm sorry for that, man.
Yeah. Well, I go and eventually I go back to court, wall to wall with news media, December 13th, 2016. I turn around and I apologize to everybody in the courtroom. It was so high profile, they even had a live camera on my home, actually, as well. I apologize to everybody. I'm broken. I'm crying. I'm at my rock bottom. And eventually the judge says, "What do you have to say for yourself?" I said, "I'm sorry. I'm an addict. I need treatment. I mean, I'm really sorry for what I did. I take full responsibility." And she says, "Well, I'm going to give you the best treatment in the state. You're going to do 4 years in prison." And I thought, oh my gosh. So, long story short, I do my first 30 days in solitary confinement. They
Mm-hmm.
were going to put me in protective custody. The only time you knew when it was time to eat in there, Manny, was those wheels were spinning on that concrete.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't know. I didn't speak to my kids for almost 30 days. It was during the holidays, which is tough. It kind of reminds me of what's going right now from Thanksgiving to Christmas.
Yeah.
And I go to prison and I'm in protective custody for a short time. Eventually, I signed out. I went into general population, and I won't get into all my prison stories,
Yeah.
but to fast forward, I ended up serving all my time. I stayed sober all the way through, which there is a lot of drugs in prison,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually went through a divorce, bankruptcy. Um, you know,
While you were in prison.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was a lot of my doings because the day I was sentenced, I had a girlfriend and they released my jail phone calls the day I got the
Jeez.
media. So
Yeah.
it kind of crushed me. And you know what? I had to, step up and be a man and admit to all this. And that's part of recovery too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, so eventually went through and got out around, I got April 6th, 2020 was my official release date.
Okay. Right after pandemic.
You got it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Come out to the pandemic.
Yeah. I kind of
um,
got hit in the face.
were you able to make some friends in prison?
I
Or
did. I
yeah.
did. I even ran into somebody that I went to college with and used to work out with back in the day as well. We crossed paths. I even crossed paths with people that I knew from, when I was in law enforcement that I had been involved with putting them in prison too.
Wow.
And so I didn't have any issues. Of course, there was one I had, somebody tries you once, but I handle it, then people respect you.
Yeah. Yeah. So were you able to forgive yourself in that time? What was that like for you during those years?
That's interesting you asked that. You know, through that time, forgiveness is really tough, especially yourself because you put your family and your loved ones
Mm.
through so much. And it wasn't even up to a couple years ago, or maybe even a year ago, Manny. It took me to so totally forgive myself. That's the hardest thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And once you do, so many amazing things can happen
Yeah.
through forgiveness.
I'm sure it felt like just wait. We all make mistakes. So
We do, we all have our own higher power. I don't like to, preach but teach.
mhm.
I got closer to God while I was in prison, and a lot of people do. I mean, so there was so I had a workout partner who was a blood and was a Muslim, and so I even got to the point I wanted to respect his religion. So I read the Quran and I even did Ramadan for 30 days with him out
Wow.
of respect and, fasted for 30. So those were some of the things I did to get closer and build a relationship with my God, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And, and that helped me with forgiveness too.
Good. Good.
It really did. But yeah, like I said, after, I come out, I get hit in the face with the pandemic, and I end up being homeless for a short time, flopping on an air mattress in
Mm.
somebody's spare room.
Yeah. Are you in Fremont
I'm in
still?
Fremont. I'm back where I have to be. I got an ankle monitor. I'm on parole.
Yeah.
And no, of course, I had to find a job. So
Yeah.
what do? So I happen to know the owner of Lee's Famous Recipe. Larry Bowman. He's a great guy, and he was kind enough to give me a job frying chicken there for $9.50 an hour, and I took pride in that. But what was interesting, the people from the community knew I was there frying chicken. So they started coming, taking pictures, putting memes on Facebook, trying to
Yeah.
tear me down. Instead of tearing me down, Andy, they turned me up. They turned me all the way up. I hit meetings hard. I was at NA meetings, started really working on myself and my relationship with my children.
Yeah.
I hit the ground running. And so to kind of fast forward things, I ended up meeting somebody at a meeting. He offered me a job working in the treatment industry. I worked midnight shift and started you know, kind of just hanging out with some of the individuals that were in treatment and sharing my story with them and giving them hope and giving them encouragement. And I'm like, man, I think this is my purpose. This
Yeah.
is it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to come back out on social media. I was going to kind of lay low for a while. But one night I did, and it took off, and people started to reach out to me, and I was really transparent about what was going on with me, and people were getting in my DM saying, hey, I need your help. I've been suffering in silence,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so many people I could relate with. So I started to go that way. And I belonged to when I was the sheriff, I belonged to a lot of community organizations. One of them was Exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the president reach out to me, who was a childhood friend, and say, hey, I'd like to meet you for lunch. So I did. And he's like, hey, why don't you come into Exchange and share your story with everybody? I'm like, man, you sure? He's like, I think it'll do some good.
Yeah.
I did, and they embraced it. People took off because I was honest, transparent, and people could relate with me in my own back in my community.
Yeah.
And things were going well. And eventually, there was a woman. She reached out to me on my DM and
Yeah.
said to me, "Hey, I love what you're doing. I love your story. I get up that way. I'd love to have lunch with you and your girlfriend." And I said, "Laugh out loud. I'll meet with you, but I don't have no girlfriend."
Mm.
She came in November. I met her November 22nd. I told her what I wanted to do and about my vision. We started to get close, and we ended up getting married 6 weeks later.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible.
It is. And her name's Jennifer. And, so you could see what kind of woman she was when I had nothing. I had just got an apartment in the hood where I used to actually kick doors in.
Yeah.
And even one of the dope boys come up to me and said, Kyle, welcome to the hood. You're one of us now.
Yeah.
They welcomed me,
Yeah.
And so eventually I ended up getting a job down here in the Columbus area. We live in Sunbury. And she says to me one day, people are wanting you to always speak. Why don't you create something? Let's create something, a company, an organization, LLC. I said,
Yeah.
what do you think we should call it? She goes, KO Addiction. She goes, you were a boxer. Your initials are KO. Everybody called, that was my nickname growing up, was KO. Call it KO Addiction. It was brilliant by her. And the symbol of boxing gloves with KO on them.
I love it.
And then things started to pick up where people wanted me to speak. Started traveling, doing podcast appearances. Like I'm with you now, Manny,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've traveled the country, and I will be releasing a book now in 2026 called Prison Prodigy.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm here locally. I'm Director of Business Development for Complete Healthcare. We have 11 outpatient treatment facilities. And, I love to go out and help people, especially the homeless, having a taste of, being homeless at one time.
Yeah.
And, I got two stepsons. I got my daughter and my son, two grandkids, another one on the way here
That's
in
awesome.
December.
Congrats.
God is great. And I have no regrets.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think too many people try to, be perfect all the time, and I think a lot of that just sets you up for failure. So anytime I hear stories like this, that's why I wanted to feature you, just because, I see a lot of good. Uh, we met through Ian, but we were at that event,
Yes.
Obi's event, and I there's a lot of people suffering in silence, and I think at that event, we saw like a famous player's father just break down on stage,
Right.
and it's something that was the last thing I would see. So I just think we need more honest, transparent, real conversations.
Hmm.
Especially just where we're at as a society. So I'm not perfect. I don't know many people that are. So it's just appreciate you sharing this. And I know a lot of people could relate. We had Mark Coleman on, and it was a
Yeah.
similar story. Um, just battling addiction. So uh, definitely appreciate you sharing that. I know a lot of people just can listen and learn, and it can change their own life and their own. And who knows how it may. So
Well, yeah, like they always say, if you can touch one person, Manny, and people got to remember, there's no such thing as perfection, only progression, and we never lose. We always learn. And one of my famous lines that I tell everybody, like when I go back in the prisons and I'm getting ready, I think I talked to you a little bit prior to about this, but I want to do a speaking tour and try to hit as many prisons next year as I can and share my story and give hope.
yeah,
You are never defined by your past, only refined by your past.
yeah, I love that. I love that.
Yep, your past never defines you, only refines you.
Yes, man. Well, Kyle, I appreciate you coming. Tell the folks where they can find you.
You can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn. I always, respond back. I think it's very important. Email kyleovermeyer7 at gmail.com. And I always do this, and not many people do this, but my phone number is 419-455-0793. Happy holidays. And you know what? Whoever you believe in, have those blessings, please.
Thank you. Definitely look forward to doing more with you. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate you, Manny.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.